for me, it always felt like family, WHVP. It still does, and it did in the past.
That's the joy of having a small company, right? That's something that I enjoy very much as well. I think we are a very democratic company, I think, where there's a lot of topics that we can discuss together and we can find a consensus together. And I think that also makes our decisions better and longer lasting. Welcome to Swiss Money Secrets, your go-to podcast for insights on offshore investing and banking from the trusted Swiss perspective. Let's get into it.
So here we are, back again with the Swiss Money Secrets podcast. Today we are joined by Julia Fernandez, the talented cookie in our pot at WHVP. We're so excited to be sitting down with you today, Julia, to talk about your time at WHVP and the difference between the first generation and the second generation and things that have went on in your career. But before we get into that, the news of today is the women's European Championship is coming to Switzerland in soccer for our American people. Julia, as our soccer fanatic, maybe you can give your insight and your excitement into what's coming to Switzerland.
Yeah, hi. I'm totally excited about that. I'm, as you said, really fanatic in men's soccer, but I started a few years ago to watch also women, and I'm so excited that they are coming to Switzerland this year. And I even bought tickets, and apparently all the tickets in Zurich are sold out. So I'm going to Bern to watch the current World Championship Spain playing against Portugal.
And that's especially interesting because although you were born and raised in Switzerland, you're Spanish and you choose Spain over Switzerland.
Yeah, that's true. But that's my father's fault. He always watched Spain and was always a big fan of Spain.
To be fair, they're also better than the Swiss soccer players. So I mean, if I had the choice, I might also choose Spain over Switzerland.
I do have to say I'm a Swiss fan when it comes to men's soccer when the World Championships come around. But when it's female, then I'm definitely a USA fan all the way.
Yeah.
For the exact reason.
That makes totally real.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, we're excited about that, definitely. If there's any spare tickets, I might try to snag some up to take my wife and daughter, but we'll see. Probably not, as you said, with tickets being sold out. But I think that leads in nicely to where we're going to go today with today's conversation. Julia, maybe you can jump in by, I guess, giving a little bit of backstory of what even attracted you to come work for WHVP. At that time, it was Robert Vrijhof who was leading the company. We just talked to him actually in the last episode about the generational switch. So maybe you could give kind of a picture into what started your journey to WHVP over 20 years ago.
Yes, well, I worked for 10 years with a private bank, where I then, for the last 4 years, I met Rob and the other partner he had by the time. And then came the moment where I just wanted to leave. I was still young. I didn't want to work. I was working there for 10 years. I didn't want to work any longer there. And then I thought, well, I might switch and go from a bank to a smaller business. And I met Rob and the other partner, and I always thought they are honest people. The way they work, it looks good to me. And they called me and asked me whether I wanted to start to work there, and that's how I went there.
That's the story.
Yeah, at the bank you worked with external asset managers, right?
Correct.
So you had the job of the people that we now talk to on a daily basis when we need something for our clients. So you really have a full picture of how everything works. You have seen the bank side, you have seen the external or the independent side, so you know it all.
And I think that's a really big point. I think when I came onto the company, it was a similar, getting to know Jamie and Urs. I joined the company 20 years after you, but it was a similar thing. I got to know Jamie and Urs for about 3 years before I even came onto the company, and it was something that attracted me to Jamie and Urs was they're honest and true hearts, you know, as in a friendship relationship. And it was even more so of like, hey, I know I can go to work to this place and these morals will be upheld, clients will be respected, and we can work from a place of trust and honesty. And that was something that made that decision as easy as it could be for me. And so it's very interesting to see that you even saw that in the first generation, and have stayed with the company, obviously through the transition, which we're all very thankful for.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess it would be curious to me. We all know the working environment of WHVP today, but what was it like 20 years ago?
Well, it was not in a bad way. It was a bit chaotic. The first day I entered WHVP, it was rather a small office and there were papers everywhere. So I first had to tidy up everything because it was really a total mess. And yeah, there are some funny stories, like it was, I think, the third day working in there, a client called. I put him through to Rob, and then he said, "Who is it?" And then I said, "I don't know, I think it's a client, he speaks English." So, that was for many years a running gag at the company. It was different, but still we knew every client, we knew what the client wanted, and they trusted in us, and that's still the same today. So it was a bit chaotic, or more chaotic than today, but in many things it's still the same.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And I would say, Jamie, when you joined the company more than 10 years ago now,
A little over 8.
8 years, you didn't get to experience that chaos. It was all cleaned up thanks to Julia.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Julia, I've known you for most of my life. You joined the firm in 2002, right?
Yes.
So 23 years now. And when I joined the firm, we had great processes. I'm always very impressed by Julia's Excel list. So Julia is fantastic at everything that I'm bad at, which is a very good position to be, because we're such a small company. We're just 5 people. And within those 5 people, we have such different personalities. We have such different types of like strengths and weaknesses. I know Julia doesn't really like to be in the limelight. We feel very grateful that she made an exception for us today to come on the podcast. Took a little bit of convincing, but those are the things that you don't really like, which Jess and we feel a lot more comfortable just talking and being in front of cameras. That doesn't bother us too much. But then at the same time, Julia, you're so exceptional at all the nitty-gritty details that are essential to keep a business running, right? You know every single account number of every single client that we have. And every year we onboard more clients. And every year she still knows every single account number of every single client. She knows how many clients we have in which stage. She is a huge help to Danny in taking care of all the anti-money laundering rules that we have to adhere to. She's great at keeping files of everything. So we are insanely grateful that we were able to keep Julia on board, because it's not, I mean, something that is a given, right? I mean, there's a change in leadership, there's a change in generations, and for us that we were able to keep you on is a huge help. I mean, it would have been a very different situation if you wouldn't have been able to keep the long-term employees, because that's the spirit of the company, right? We rely on her knowledge and expertise and experience, and similar to my dad, there's a lot of questions that we can ask that they have already seen in one way or another.
Yeah, massive. I think it was, you know, for me joining the company and all of the learning that I got from Jamie and Urs, but I got so much from Julia. And it was always funny. One of the funny stories that I always kind of am reminded of is, you know, I always felt like, I'm asking Julia too many questions. And then I would hear in her office a phone call, you know, talking with a partner or a business partner or someone. And then I would come into your office. I said, what was that? Oh, this private bank that I used to work at long, long ago had a question about some processes. They asked me and I fixed it for them. I was like, whoa, okay. So it's not just me inside the company coming to ask for things, but even, you know, former employers that knew you had the expertise and the knowledge. It's still one of the one of the fun memories I have of my early days. And so I would want to know what were some of what's I guess a cherished memory or a fun memory that you have of your early days, other than the chaos that you cleaned up.
Yeah.
But some interesting, I guess, tidbits that have still stuck with you over the past 23 years.
Yeah, one was also, as I told you, the one with the English-speaking client.
Yeah.
And one other is we had this small office. It was an apartment before, or it looked like an apartment. And then I stepped out to make myself a coffee, and there was sitting a woman, and she had 2 paper bags just next to her. And I didn't know who she is, so I just made my coffee, went inside again, and then I thought maybe she wants something from us. And then I went out there and I asked her, and she said, yeah, I'm waiting for Rob. And then she had in these bags gold bars. It was amazing. It was really...
Yeah.
Nowadays that won't happen.
Yeah.
That's not possible anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we got our license from the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2011, right? You have been part of that process when that happened, and then we have received our license from the Swiss Financial Market Authority, I believe in 2023. Is that correct? Has it been 2 years now?
That's a good question.
I think it has been
2023.
Yeah. So things are a lot more orderly now, not just because of personalities and preferences, but also because obviously we are very highly regulated from 2 jurisdictions now, and back in the day there was all a lot more flexible. So I think that is one contributor to how things have gotten a little bit sorted out.
Yeah, and certainly I'd say in terms of it's much, there's the frameworks in which we work are much more rigid. When you hear the stories, it was like the Wild West compared to today's working styles, and I'd say pros and cons to both, but it certainly adds a whole lot of confidence for clients to know that there's a certain bandwidth in which you have to work with, and procedures and structures and processes that have to be completed.
Yeah, and despite the anecdotes, I think it's something that I'm very proud of is the fact that we were able to continuously work with US clients for almost 35 years. So even when there was a tax dispute between the US and Switzerland, and even when there was times where we had to obtain licenses, we were able to get fully licensed with all relevant jurisdictions without any hiccups and without having to close our doors or invite clients to leave. And I think that's something that really speaks to the continuity. And even if there was a lot of paper laying around, business has always been conducted properly, even before the licenses were required. And that's something, a sort of legacy that we are able to build on now, because we were able to keep all the existing business and clients throughout those licensing processes, and then also throughout this generational transfer that we have done.
Yeah, I mean, the adaptability is crazy to think about that, and so much of what is changing. And I think even a testament to you to being in both of those times and being a high level, employee for a certain period to a partner, being able to navigate that for me is something that I absolutely aspire to follow in your footsteps in that. And it's really cool.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I know you're typically the question askers,
right.
but I'm curious because you started out in a more administrative role, and then throughout the years you have started building your own client book, and now you manage, or you're part of your role is being a relationship manager. So how was that switch for you? What made you interested in working directly with clients in regards to their portfolio management, and how have you experienced that transition?
That's a good question. For me, that's the thing, working in a small company, you can take new things on without asking or being asked. So I was interested in holding clients, in having clients, and I started first with 1 or 2, and then I felt confident that I can do that. And then I just took over, and it really feels good. What I can see now is the difference in having clients before, because I had already 1 or 2 clients in the past, and having clients now. It's much more organized nowadays than it was before. So I'm very grateful that I was able to take over clients. The good thing for me is I knew already all the clients. They knew me as the administrative person. I was always in contact with them regarding tax statements, regarding any advices or whatever. So for me, it wasn't that difficult to take over clients because I already knew them. And now, yeah, I'm acquainted with that, and I take also new clients, and that's really fascinating for me and very interesting.
What do you enjoy most about working with clients in your relationship management capacity?
To be in contact with them, that I can see when I can help them by doing something. That's what I really appreciate. If they need my help and then I can sort it out for them, that's what I most like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's same for me. I mean, when you can bring that peace of mind to someone, it's almost the best feeling you can get. Especially no matter what that problem is for the client, it's just fantastic.
I agree.
Sorry.
Nothing more to add.
No, I thought you had something to say. My apologies. Jamie, Julia, excuse me. I would be really curious to know, to get your perspective on the different kind of, I would say, leadership in terms of how Rob used to lead the company and how Jamie and Urs lead the company today. In terms of their management style, if you have any interesting, comparisons or movements where they were have benefited or, I guess, used as a stepping stone to then take it into the second generation.
Yeah. Well, then I can go back again to the chaos. It was a bit more chaotic, but that was possible in the past because then Rob just called me, hey, I just bought 1,000 shares of X. Just look which client can have it. Nowadays, everything is structured.
I think you mean X as in
yes,
not
the company.
No, I'm sorry.
Not the company.
No, it's just XY or
yes,
whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because we now have a company called X that
Okay, I'm
did
sorry.
not
Sorry.
exist
Did not
back-
exist.
Sorry
back
for
in
that.
those
Yeah,
days.
sorry for that.
Just to be clear about what we mean.
Okay. Now it's much more structured, but it comes back together because I always felt involved in what's going on. I'm feeling that today as I felt 23 years ago. I was always involved in what's going on, where are we, how many clients do we have, whatever. I was always involved, and that's still the same today.
Yeah.
That's what I really appreciate and what I love to be there. For me, it always felt like family, WHVP. It still does, and it did in the past.
That's the joy of having a small company, right? That's something that I enjoy very much as well. I think we are a very democratic company, I think, where there's a lot of topics that we can discuss together and we can find a consensus together. And I think that also makes our decisions better and longer lasting because we get the perspectives of different people, and they obviously bring different mindsets and different life experiences to the table. So sometimes there's some back and forth, and sometimes there are different priorities, but it's always important, I believe, to hear everyone's voice. And having a small company as ours with only 5 people, it's a lot easier to do than if you have a company with 100 or 1,000 people. At some point, you have to become more directive in the way a company is being led. But as long as you're a small company and everyone is so capable and invested, it is a great opportunity to hear every voice before decisions are being made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the ability in a small company to know who you're working with, to actually know. And, in a big company, you might have really talented people that are just too far down on the chain. If they have an idea and present it to someone higher up, they don't know who that person is. So how can they take it with any weight? In a small company, you know what people do, you know them personally, you know their thought process. And so you can take everything in the nuanced understanding of that person and where the decision lies, where are their strengths, where do they see things maybe differently, but that might have been a blind spot in your area. And I think that makes obviously a big difference of why small companies, as you mentioned, can do that versus, a big company. And that would be where I would be interested to hear from you, Julia. You stepped away from, the larger private bank setting into the wealth management. What are some things that you've seen where they really do operate different in terms of kind of even daily business, but also management of clients?
Management of clients. I worked in the private banking in a bank with Swiss clients, and it was in a big picture the same thing, but it went to different departments. That's what I most like to be in a small company, because there you do everything. In a bigger company, you just do a small thing and then you just pass it over to another department, and then it goes or it comes from another department, and so you don't see the whole picture. But I think client-wise, it's the same. It's not the big difference.
I think it probably makes it harder for a client to really build a relationship with the person who works if there's so many different moving parts, right? At WHVP, you have one single point of contact. Could be Julia, could be Jess, could be someone else, where this person does everything, or at least communicates everything. And that makes it a lot easier to really have a personal relationship. Whereas with the bank, you talk to someone, but this person wasn't the person that made the decision, and there wasn't the person who did the research, and then it just is very scattered. And from a bank's perspective, at least how I perceived it working for a universal bank, the clients there was a much higher volume of clients for fewer relationship managers. So you can have several hundred clients appointed to you, and it's almost impossible to really know everyone thoroughly, because you just have so much capacity to manage a client. Whereas at WHVP, we try to cap the relationships per relationship manager at like 50 or sometimes even below that, so they really actually can communicate everything that they have to communicate to the people that they work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point of just that difference between kind of the private bank and a boutique, I would say, family-owned wealth.
And I think in a smaller company, the relationship manager stays for many, many years. So then you can start building up a real relationship with a client. And that doesn't work with a bank where you have 100 clients. And then after 2 years, I now go to the other bank and work from there. And so for the client, I think that's difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's a really good point, and kind of leans into I would say the company culture of fostering relationships for the long term. Do you have you seen anything really change in terms of, you've been with the company through 2 generations. Have you seen any really changes in that aspect of how the clients are managed outside of the technical side? Obviously, we have video calls and it's not just a fax machine, but yeah.
No, I think every relationship manager in the past was as dedicated to the client as today. Yeah. That really didn't change, and that's what I love there, because the client is a human being at our company and not just a number. Oh, he's a big one. He has 10 millions with us. Oh, and that one, he just has 500,000. That's not important to us. Every client is treated the same, and that's what I really like. And with a bigger company, you don't see that.
Yeah. Jamie, is that your view as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly important for us to see the human side of our clients and to treat them as human beings and not just as numbers. And it's also very important to me personally to see the whole family structure, right? So typically there's often a spouse there as well. There's often children there or other family members there as well. And I think we really have the time to focus on all those people and involve them in the conversations, involve them in the whole setup if the client wishes for that. And I think with the larger institute, it's often more efficiency driven, whereas we are really relationship driven. We want to know our clients, we want to know their hopes and fears and desires, we want to know what they're looking to achieve, and we really want to build something that works for them.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And Julia, that's what I guess I would, going on the family line of things, of understanding that multi-generational aspect, not just of the client. Jamie or Julia, how has it been for you to work with 2 generations of Vrijhofs? From working with Rob to now working with Jamie, how has that been for you, and what are the benefits that you've taken out of it?
Well, one thing I have to tell that I didn't tell, when I started working with WHVP, Rob came to my office and said, I need a babysitter. You have to go to my place and watch for Jamie, my daughter. That's the first time I met Jamie. I saw her every year on every Christmas gathering we had. So, it was like my little niece coming in. And so I felt for her from the first moment she came in. And as I said, for me, it's family. Rob was like, I don't know, my uncle. And it wasn't that difficult for me, honestly. Sometimes she pushes me, but I really like. The former partners didn't that. She pushes me. She says, hey, you have to go there, even if she knows that's not so my thing. And then I really enjoy that, and I'm pretty happy what came out of me, how I changed in the past years. So I'm thankful to Jamie, but I'm also thankful to Rob for taking me in, for giving me the chance to stay with WHVP.
Yeah, that's really interesting and cool to hear. I mean, to imagine seeing someone grow up and then grow into what Jamie has become, and we're still just at the very beginning of Jamie's career. But I mean, for us, we talk about it all the time. It's just so exciting to work for Jamie and Urs. But it is.
Don't make me blush, please.
No, but it's true. It's fun to watch, and I can't, it's hard for me to imagine Julia's shoes, who's seen the full picture and see where it's going, because I've just been watching you as a person for 8 years, and so to see that full picture has just got to be incredible. It's fun. It's fun just sitting where I'm sitting today. So I guess also what would be the biggest challenge that you think? What was the biggest challenge that WHVP had to navigate and came through successfully for you at your time since being with WHVP?
I didn't get that question, sorry.
So during your time at WHVP, what was the biggest, I guess, organizational challenge that you saw the company go through and overcome?
Okay, that was definitely the registration with the SEC, and then the second one with FINMA in Switzerland. Yeah, both were kind of the same, but then with the SEC, we did it with external lawyer, and so on. So there were so many papers to read through and prepare everything. And for the Swiss part, it was similar, but we did it internally. And I think these were the two biggest steps we took.
Props to Daniel here, who did like 95% of the workload involved in getting license. I think we all felt like we were suffering a little bit, but he was certainly suffering a lot more from the workload. I mean, it took almost a year to get the Swiss license.
Yeah.
And while we could take over some of the processes and things that we have from our US license, we had to translate a lot of documents, and then there's always the Swiss finish. The Swiss people have some different focuses than the people in the US. There's different emphasis, so there's still a lot of writing and printing and signing stuff and putting things together. So we are certainly very happy that we have the license now, and that we hopefully don't have to go through this licensing process again anytime soon, even though there's still obviously ongoing work involved in staying compliant with all the rules and regulations. There's a lot of documentation that we have to do, but that's a lot easier to handle than getting the license in the first place.
Yeah. How much do you think going through, Julia, the SEC registration helped with doing the FINMA licensing or the Swiss registration?
It made it easier, I think, because we already had some things in place, which I guess other non-SEC licensed RIAs didn't have. So that made it easier, I think. But nevertheless, it still was
still a challenge. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was. Yeah, I almost had nothing to do with that licensing, but it's just the all the moving pieces and the obstacles, I think, on the other side, to not dive too much into it, but also FINMA being not a new concept, but the licensing being something that was brought into Switzerland made that challenge versus SEC that's very established, and so I think that obviously created more work
Yeah.
as they look to implement things. What excites you, Julia, about the future of where the company is going?
I'm very happy to see the company growing. I'm happy to see what's happening with this podcast and newsletter is really amazing. What Urs has done with the newsletter, that excites me. That makes me happy to see that it's going further. And yes, the day will come that I won't be around anymore.
Don't say it's true, Julia. Don't say it.
I'm still the old cookie.
The best cookie.
But that's what I still want to see, and to see how well Jamie and her husband is doing, and you as well.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Now you're going to make me blush. Jamie, I guess for you, that question too, where do you kind of see the company going, and what are you kind of most excited about as we snowball forward as a second generation owned company?
I'm very excited about the team that we have. I mean, I mentioned it before, and I know it might come across cheesy, but I really truly mean it from the bottom of my heart that I'm so happy with the people that we have on board, because being in the financial services industry, the people are what make us, right? We don't have a product to sell. We sell services, and that goes through people and relationship. So I'm super excited to hopefully have every person on board for a long, long time to come. And then I'm also excited to just see how all the time and effort we have invested in the past 5 years since taking over the company, how this is working out. Like we have in the beginning, it took a lot of time and patience to acquire new clients. I mean, I've spoken about this in the past. We took over the company during COVID. It was very difficult. We weren't able to travel to the US. It was hard to build a network. It was hard to maintain the relationships with the clients without being able to see them face to face. And we have invested a lot of time in strengthening those relationships, in becoming better and more helpful in terms of providing educational resources, in being more open about speaking how we do business, what sets us apart, etc. And now with all the political turmoil that we're seeing, with all the geopolitical uncertainty that we're seeing, the past few months or maybe the past year, we have seen a huge increase in interest in the services that we provide. And I'm just excited that we are able to help people face their fears and uncertainty. I have conversations with Americans on a daily basis that are worried about US dollar devaluation, that are worried about the political direction the country is taking, that are worried about the levels of debt the US is taking, that are seeking privacy, that are seeking international investment diversification, and that we are able to help those people put their minds at ease, to help them preserve what they have built over years and decades. That is something that really excites me about the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way, and I think I love about this, the where we are as a company, and all the work that we've put in, to this point. It's 3 years, No, 32
It will be
years.
35 years next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
34
Get ready
years.
to party.
Yeah. But all the work that has led up to where we are today, not just what we've put in, but Julia over 20 years, your dad when he started the company for that time, and where we are, what we've had to go through, COVID, as you mentioned, that made us become more innovative into where we were going, how we were trying to connect people, educate people. And I mean, there were times where we had conversations where we're like, hey, does this make sense anymore? We're not seeing the payout. But now we're starting to see it, you know, by positioning with, hey, we just want people to understand what's available to them, you know, what this can be offered to them. And I guess that persistence, and I think, you know, driven strongly by you, and Julia mentioned this earlier, that said, okay, let's improve where we can. Let's take that next little step, improve where we can, push ourselves where we don't feel like being pushed right now, and just take that little incremental step and keep going and keep going and keep going. And I think it comes back to the whole idea of how do we be sustainable over generations versus, and for our clients, for our company, for what we do as individuals. You know, it's kind of that holistic picture of how do we move forward in a way that's going to make sense. And I think we're starting to see that come about, those incremental steps. I mean, this is a perfect example in a visual form of where we started in my office, stuffed into a small corner with four of us recording on a laptop, and to where we are today. And just those little steps, and not being ashamed of that process, but understanding that it's a part of the game, and seeing how we can get better and improve every day is something that I'm so excited about. And yet keeping that core focus on, let's care for these clients, let's make sure they're protected, let's ensure that we can bring a solution to give them peace of mind. Yeah, I think yeah, so with that, Julia, I would ask you, and Jamie, to you as well, what do you have any advice for professionals who might be in a similar position, a small company, whether they're employee or looking through a generational transfer, how they can, I guess, a tip of how they can prepare themselves or be a part of that transition when it comes about?
I always think be open to go the extra mile and be ready for whatever comes to you and try to solve it. That's what I think.
I think from my perspective, what's important is a new generation obviously comes with new ideas and new inputs, and hopefully with innovative ideas, but never lose sight of the roots of the company, of the legacy. Always have respect for the people that came before you, and also don't throw things overboard just for the sake of throwing them overboard. Really think twice about changing things, because there's a reason why things have been done the way they have been done. And there are valid reasons to change things, but not everything has to be changed, and not everything has to be changed at the same time. And I'm fairly happy and proud with how we went about this at WHVP. While we have really improved and changed the vast majority of support functions and processes of like how we do things in the back office, how we communicate with clients, etc., we have always stayed true to our calling of preserving the legacies of our US clients, and we have never made any fundamental changes to our core business, because it worked and it still works, and it is a good service that people are seeking. So I'm very happy that we didn't make any unnecessary changes to the core business of how we do business. I think that is still very similar to when the company was founded in 1991. Again, everything else has probably changed with technology, with digitalization, with regulation. All of this is different, but how we treat our clients and what we offer to them, that has stayed the same throughout the past almost 35 years.
Great. Thank you for that, Jamie. Julia, thank you so much for coming and being a part of this today. It was such a pleasure.
It was an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of the Swiss Money Secrets podcast. If you would like to learn more about WHVP and what we do, check us out on our website at whvp.ch. Or you can check us out on any of our social media handles on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram by simply searching WHVP. Have a great rest of your day.